Well, hello everyone. How are you? My name is Sgro, and this is my beautiful wife, Kristin, and we are the co-lead pastors of Neighborhood Church, and we are with you today, bringing you the 7th session of Emotionally Healthy Relationships, Fight Cleanly, and how to fight cleanly. And if you stay tuned, you might just get to hear how me and Kristin fight. And here's a hint. Sometimes it's not so clean, is it, dear?
No.
But first, before that, Kristin, what exactly is clean fighting and why is it so incredibly important in any relationship?
Sure. Well, so clean fighting really isn't even about fighting.
Mm-hmm.
It's a set of negotiating skills that two people can use that actually eliminates dirty fighting. Which you and I and most of our viewers are pretty used to. And you're going to be talking about that in a minute.
Sure.
It's a means to solve conflict.
Wait, you're saying relationships have conflict?
Yes, lots of it. It's a means to resolve conflict by having the offended party, the person that is feeling hurt, that feels wronged. It's having the offended party pretty much take responsibility for their emotions, their feelings, their actions.
So what you're saying is that the person who is offended or has an issue with somebody else, they should have the responsibility of going to that person and initiating some sort of a conflict resolution.
Correct.
Why is that?
Well, so a lot of times, you and I have experienced this. I've experienced it with friendships, and our viewers have experienced it. A lot of times, the person that has offended you has no idea that they've offended you. And so, if you remember,
that's true.
If you remember a couple chapters earlier, you can't wait for them to mind read that they've offended you. So this helps for any type of relationship, because if you choose not to resolve your conflict, let's say you offend me and I choose to not bring it up to Zach, maybe I don't want to ruffle the feathers, I'm being a false peacemaker. I'm pretty much making the environment peaceful, and which I'm pretty used to doing, and I think that's probably one of my weakest areas. I'm used to making the environment peaceful in order to save face, not ruffle feathers, not maybe get into an awkward feeling conversation. And so what that is that's a false peacemaker. And being a true peacemaker is taking your hurts and bringing them to the attention of the person that has offended you in order to heal and to become whole. And if you have this opportunity, if you choose to be a false peacemaker, it just kind of unravels into more brokenness in your relationship and in your own soul, because you're not being true to who you are.
I think what I'm about to say is, everybody, when I say it, it's going to be very obvious, yet it's something that we so oftentimes don't do in conflict resolution. But if we try to just maintain the proverbial peace, we try to make sure that the atmosphere is okay and nobody is upset, nobody's feathers are ruffled, we don't choose to rock the boat. What that actually leads to is bitterness, envy, feelings of misery inside of us, but it leads to broken parent relationships, broken sibling relationships. It can lead to broken relationships in your workplace setting. It can lead to, it can lead to unhealthy and broken marriages. And in the end, it's a lot of unresolved conflict that tends to build up inside, and it makes that the layers of that onion, it adds more layers to the onion of who we are inside of ourselves.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know that there's anything else I would add to that.
Well, let me ask you this question. Is there a time where you've needed to come to me and I've offended you unknowingly, or there's been some conflict that you want to resolve? Why don't you share that with our viewers? And,
sure.
and don't roll the bus over me too hard.
I will. As I knew these questions ahead of time, and as I was sitting there thinking, I don't have a big track record of examples to pick from where I've actually handled it in a very mature adult type of way.
I think you're doing much better.
I'm doing
as
much.
Of late.
Yes, thank you. I'm doing much better as of lately. But so just putting that out there. In other words, that this is very new for me. So the one time that I can recall that was most recently, it was an overwhelming week. My kids are learning some new disciplines in the home for just taking responsibility for their stuff, their emotions, all of that. That's taken months to develop. And
months. You're kidding.
Well, years, but it's just taken a long time. So we're really trying, you and I are both trying to keep those up and running. And so I'm kind of feeling overwhelmed this one week because I'm looking around the house, things aren't picked up. Some of my kids' stuff, they're not taking responsibility for it. And again, they're learning it. And, I walk up into our bedroom to put away our laundry and I'm just seeing some things, Zach's contact, I say his eyeball containers.
I wear contacts.
His contacts, dirty ones on the counter and the actual container that held the new ones empty laying on the counter. This has been years. It's never really bothered me that much before, but it has, and I've just chosen to ignore it because it seems petty to me. And it just started festering and other things around the house with the kids and you leaving your coat out. I'm being honest. Him leaving his coat out. Just things that when you live in a house with 6 people, if everybody does that, you won't be able to move. So I'm feeling overwhelmed. I have this EHR, emotionally healthy relationships, to call upon. So I really start putting into practice what they've asked us to do. And I start journaling out, why am I so angry at Zach? Why am I so angry at my family? The anger turned to sadness. The sadness was, I just feel so overwhelmed right now. And to dig myself out of this hole it's going to set me back a week. And so I love seeing that the anger turned to sadness. And then I was able to also come up with solutions. All this before I bring it to Zach's attention. And I hit you up at the right time and I say, hey, can you receive from me right now? And we just had an honest conversation and I broke down in tears, pretty much reading him straight from my journal. Like, this is how I feel. And here's some solutions I've bringing to your attention to see if we can put into place. And you received it well.
Yeah.
There were things that you said, we left that in interaction with Zach saying, here is what I'm going to try and do better. Knowing that he's not going to be perfect, etc. We're going to revisit this over and over, over the years. But it will get better slowly. And then you were honest with me and you said, can you handle, some reality news right now that our house
we live in reality, embrace real.
Our house is pretty tiny and, there's things that you can't just hang up your coat the minute you walk in because our doorway entrance is about this big. Yeah. So a lot of times it's easier to
I remember that. I was having trouble placing this, but I feel like that kind of conflict took like 3 or 4 days to work through. I mean, it was one in which we definitely worked it out and we came to some mutually agreeable solutions where you gave a little bit and I gave a little bit. We negotiated the conflict in order for me to be able to do some things that to live up to set some expectations that I could actually live up to. And so as Kristin is painting this picture, it's not something like she said that she just, when she has an issue with me, she just comes to and lets her rip. I mean, you saw how she's been putting these things into practice where she went and she dealt with her emotions first, which is something you've not always done. Right. And then, which is key, this is so crucial anytime you want to resolve conflict, is that if you have that issue with somebody else, you ask them if it's an appropriate time. And if it's not, don't push. Because if she would have brought that to me and it wasn't an appropriate time, I could have blown up. I could have not received her well. I could have resorted to dirty fighting tactics, which
we have an example
I do sometimes. I mean, I can give you just a few examples that, I'll complain when I'm fighting dirty and I'm on the defensive. I'll complain about the things that she doesn't do right. I'll blame problems on her. I'll give you just one example. So obviously we're living in the midst of, single digit, double digit, below freezing weather. And, we have 4 kids so they can help us shovel the driveway when there's snow on it. And so Gracie, my oldest, wanted to earn some money, and I was planning on shoveling the driveway, but I gave her an opportunity to earn some money, and she went out and started doing it. And she was out there, 30, 40 minutes. And man, she didn't do a real good job of plowing the driveway or of shoveling the driveway. And I'm just like, we're going to stick to it. You're going to persevere in the pain and you're going to get it done. And then, trying to be a good dad, I went out there and helped her, and I was just like, there was ice underneath it or whatever. And I'm just like, okay, Grace, like, this is not working. And I understand your frustration. And so I got to experience some conflict resolution a little bit with my daughter. But getting to the dirty fighting part of it, Kristin earlier that day had put Sammy on a little sled, he's our youngest, and rolled him up and down the driveway, matting the snow down so it became impossible to shovel it because we just didn't get to it quick enough. At least that's what I chose to use as a tactic that I don't even know if it was really true or not, to blame her for the situation that occurred. I know that...
And I heard about that for...
Oh, we're still
days.
hearing about it.
4 days.
We're still hearing about it. But I can yell, I can become enraged. I'm not really much of a silent treatment guy. I don't know. What are your dirty fighting tactics?
I wrote down, I don't think through my anger. Someone I follow says we become our emotions. We don't even think through them. We just become them. I become anger. I don't think through it until I've actually already done the damage, and then I come crawling back seeking your forgiveness. And so it has been a struggle for me to have to pause to think on what I'm feeling instead of becoming it. And so dirty fighting, I will just vomit out my emotions on Zach a lot of
Not
times.
always nice.
Yes, not
but
always.
You're not too terrible.
No, not always nice, but very cut and dry, very direct. Much in a way that I would not want you to speak to me.
Sure.
Very
There's
direct to you.
there's a way of delivering the meal. How you say things is just as important as what you say. And that's certainly been a part of the emotionally healthy spirituality learning that we've done. And so, look, in the end, the purpose of learning how to fight cleanly, to do clean fighting, is so that we can become Jesus-like peacemakers. We can look at situations where there's been some brokenness, where conflict has arose, and we can bring a wholeness and a redemption and reconciliation to the situation. And that's exactly what Jesus does. And the beauty of learning to fight cleanly or be a Jesus-like peacemaker is there are a tremendous amount of blessings associated with it. Jesus says, I believe in Matthew 5, verse 9, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. And it seems just in that scripture alone, we have the ability, when we're being a peacemaker, it helps lead us to a greater understanding of our familial relationships within the family of God, and that seemingly others around us, because they look at us and see us as peacemakers, as Craig Blumberg, a commentator, puts it, he will see us as God's true ambassadors, as those who are being conformed to his likeness. And so there is a Christian witness to us being peacemakers in the world that's a huge benefit and can lead to multitude of people seeing and loving Jesus and seeing the real and true Jesus being presented in a world where, man, with what's going on, at least in our society today, there are so many false views of Jesus being presented. And so as we begin to close here, is there anything else that you'd like to add? Maybe some pointers or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I would just give an example. So, I'm reminded, I don't know where it's at in the Psalms, somewhere where David says when he stays quiet, and this is about his confession to the Lord about his sin, but when he stays quiet, he feels it in his body. I'm paraphrasing, it doesn't say it like that, but he goes on to explain about all these bodily feelings he will feel when he keeps things disclosed and or keeps things hidden and doesn't, confess them out loud. And so, as I think on that, one of the biggest things that I've learned from this, from the EHR curriculum altogether and these last few chapters is, taking an example as of lately, where I did come to Zach, and the problem that I was having, the issue I was having with him was a deeper problem in my own soul that was not going to be solved in any type of clean fighting, meaning I have to wait for more restoration and healing from the Lord on my behalf. But instead of staying quiet, I still brought it to his attention, told him what it was. It's on me that, I still struggle with this XYZ category. And honestly, the peace that I felt, that I thought normally, like, why even bring it up? He already knows it. Let's just, move on. The peace that I felt and the love that I felt towards you were so different than had I just stayed quiet. And so, you feel it in your body, like David's saying, but like when you confess, it kind of takes the sting away. Doesn't mean your whole being is completely whole in that moment when you confess it, because there's deeper stuff going on. But I just physically can feel a difference when I state how I'm feeling about something.
Well, there is a very cathartic feeling that will come over you when you confess. And I think that's part of the reason Jesus built confession into the church, into the Christian community, because it's a release, and your body does keep score. I think that's the title of a book, that your body does keep score. And when you continue to let things go, especially things that deal with the depths of your emotions, it can and will ruin you. Yeah, that's the bottom line. Right. And so in the end, you saw some of those benefits that I just shared with you, those blessings when you become a peacemaker. She shared some more with you about feeling peace. There's a relief and a release inside of you, and there are even more and more blessings. And here's a hint: when people say even more and more blessings, it's because they can't think of anything specific about what those blessings are. But there are more. I can't think of any right now. And so as we close, I want you guys to know that there are going to be some resources in the post of this on the Facebook page, that if this is something you want to learn in greater detail, that you can go to those resources. But it's also something that she had mentioned, Kristin had mentioned earlier, just a few seconds ago, that clean fighting isn't going to help everything. Sometimes there are deeper things that we need to deal with. And for that, maybe you need to consult somebody, or you need to go see somebody. I would certainly recommend you going through the material that Pete and Jerry had put together for the course. But as we conclude, I just want to thank you, for being a great wife and being somebody that tries their very best to fight cleanly. And for you all out there, as we always close, may you go in the grace and peace and mercy of Jesus Christ for the rest of your week or whenever you watch this. Goodbye.